Hello and welcome to the Thursday Night Lights with baking great bread at home. I would first like to thank Henry for inviting me. It kind of came out of left field. I was just like, hey, you want to be on this show that we do? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm learning to say yes to everything. So anyways, let me introduce myself. I am Dustin Kramer. And I'll get into more about myself, which I'm not used to talking about myself. But anyways, I do want you guys to stay until the end because I'm going to be giving something away, something pretty cool. I'm also, just a disclaimer now, I'm going to let you know that I am going to be taking a couple sips of water because I'm also not used to talking this long for this long of a time. Anyways, okay, so we're here because of baking. So I will start with how I got started making sourdough bread. Back in 2020, there was something that happened. I think we all know what I'm talking about. But so like January-ish, I was watching videos on how to make kombucha. And I was just kind of looking at that, and in the right-hand side on YouTube, you've got the videos that, you know, they recommend to you. And it was from this same guy that was teaching me how to make kombucha. Was the next video was how to make sourdough bread. And of course, I have, I've heard of sourdough bread. I know what it is. I've had like Publix version, which I'm sure has 23 plus ingredients in it. But anyway, so I finished that, and then I watched this how to make sourdough video. And I immediately like sent the link over to my sister-in-law because her and I were talking about sourdough, and one of these days we'd like to try it. And I'm assuming she watched it because a few weeks later she was like, hey, I bought a starter online. And so she brought it over to here where I'm sitting right now. And we tried our hand at this sourdough thing. And needless to say, it didn't go very well. We kind of just, we used the video that I sent her as like our instructions, which there was not very clear instruction at all. It was kind of like, do this, put it in the oven, and bada bing, you got sourdough. So we kind of just trial and errored it and kept rewinding and watching and rewinding and watching. And our first loaf came out, and it was, I mean, I didn't know at the time how bad it was, but it was pretty bad. And I wish I would have prepared the photo sooner or had a way to show you guys. But the crumb was gummy and big holes, and it was just really bad. So, you know, that was that. But since I had the starter that she bought, I was kind of tasked with taking care of it. And so I kept playing with it, and I was determined to make a good loaf of bread. And I just kept playing. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm from like Bradenton, Florida, which this was like the cooler time. So it was cooler in here. So I would keep the starter in the oven when I was feeding it because if you put it in the oven, you turn the light on, it makes for a good temperature for the sourdough or the starter to grow. A tip would be to put like a sticky note on the oven, because I went and preheated the oven, and 20 minutes later remembered that there was a starter in there, and sure enough, I killed the starter. It was like baked halfway. There's a little pile of goo in the middle that it didn't get to yet. But so it was dead. So then I started my own starter, and I guess somewhere I read that you name a starter because it's what you do and it's a living thing. So I named it Atticus because why not? It's a cool name. And I just kind of kept baking with it, trying to make a good loaf, which I had yet to actually do. And it was just a bunch of bad bakes and and there was like a whole week where everything was just flat, and I was buying flour on Amazon, spelt and einkorn and all these different things, and I didn't have any constant variable that was like something to compare it to. It was just, so I didn't know what I was doing wrong or why these things weren't rising or why I wasn't getting an ear. And but I just kind of kept at it. And one day, sometime in June, so like this is still 2020, I actually put a loaf out. It was beautiful. It had a nice ear, had a nice oven spring. I cut it open and it was a beautiful crumb. There was no large gas bowl holes or air tunnels. And I was like, okay, I think I can do something with this. And so because I have a background in graphic design and video and marketing and all that, I just, for fun, made a logo and put it on my personal Instagram story and was like, thinking about starting a bread company. And people were like, yeah, you should do that. And family was like, yeah, why not? See what happens. So like in June, I started it. I had a logo, and so I had a business. So then it was time to actually get it in front of people. I did some, the first thing was I had a family friend who had like this boutique store here in Bradenton, and they were trying to start like a little mini farmer's market in their parking lot, have some vendors come. And so I was like, sure, I'll do that, whatever. I need to get some exposure somehow. And that was like a month after I started a business. And I brought 8 loaves to the market because 1, I didn't have any confidence in the market that anyone would show up. And 2, I didn't really think anyone was going to be willing to pay $12 for a loaf of bread. So here I am at the market with 8 loaves of bread, went and bought shirts and made logos and tent and yada yada. We had the whole setup, and I ended up selling like 4 loaves before the thing even started to the other vendors there. And so then I had 4 more loaves to sell to this event that's like 4 hours long. And needless to say, I sold out. Go figure. 8 loaves, easy to sell. And this kind of just is what things looked like for the remainder of like the summer of 2020. And as buzz started to spread around, I actually had market organizers reaching out to me. I had an Instagram channel up and running at this time, website through Square up and running. And it was kind of just the pattern that was happening here. Is I would go to a new market, I'd sell out, go to a new market, sell out. And so like demand was never my issue. It was always supply. And I guess before I go any further, which this is all just coming out of nowhere, I've never really sat down and talked about this, but the disclaimer is that I am running all this out of my condo. So I'm on a 2nd floor condo. I've got a tiny electrical panel, and I'm just doing this all out of my oven back here in Dutch ovens. And so it was kind of like, how do you scale up a bakery without dumping $750,000 on a retail location and whatnot? I don't know if some of you out there have this issue, or if you run a cottage bakery yourself, or if this is just for fun. But the things like scaling up is hard to do, because if you buy like a larger mixer, so you're not hand mixing stuff, that's great. You have a mixer now, but where are you proofing these in the refrigerator at? Do you have 2 refrigerators? And so like, where are you baking all this new bread at? Is it all done in your, which side? Your personal oven? Because for me, I was making 4 loaves every hour. So a dozen took me 3 hours. So I didn't really know what to do. I've been kind of in this, just providing what I can to the markets. and people are constantly, where can I get bread? Where can I get bread? Why can't I get more bread? The number one question was always at the markets when someone would come up, it was always, so where's your storefront? Where are you located? And it's like, well, right now it's just at the markets. So anyways, that was kind of my life as Atticus from like July of 2020 to about October of 2022, just making what I could to get to the community what I could. And then I was determined in October to scale up, find some way to scale up the bakery, because I still didn't come across $750,000 to open up a storefront, but I need to do something. So I'm gonna do a little shameless plug here. I hope that's okay. But I did a little search, and I was like, there's got to be some kind of cottage baking oven out there, because this thing isn't cutting it, and I'm not able to put an $80,000 commercial oven in my second floor condo, nor will my electrical panel support that. So I searched, and I came across the Rackmaster RM 2020. And maybe some of you guys are baking on that, but it's essentially a 3-deck, like a hearth oven. So there's 3 stones in there, and there's a nice window down the center so you can see what you're doing. And it was able to fit in my condo. It was quite a scene getting it up here and uncrating it, and all like 500 pounds of it. But it has allowed me to scale the bakery up even more. And I'm now able to pump out a dozen loaves. I think it's like 40 minutes, then I give it about 15 minutes to recover heat, and then I put the next load in there. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm still providing bread to my community, still doing farmers markets. It's a little bit slower here in Florida because it's been, you know, like 100 degrees outside. So markets kind of die down, but I do bread pickups. So you order online, you go pick it up somewhere, and market season is about to pick back up. So I don't know if there's any questions. I mean, I've got a little bit more, but I thought maybe I'd take a little water break, answer some questions. If you have any, I'm going to take this real quick. Okay, sourdough baking. Can it be a bit intimidating for newcomers? That's a big word for a baker like me. Process by highlighting a common misconception or myth about sourdough that you've encountered. Can I demystify the process? Yeah, actually that's that's a good question, because this is kind of where I get a little passionate, as you might say. From my experience, which is coming up on 4 years now. 3 years? 4 years. Like Google and YouTube and Instagram and social media in general, they kind of portray this look of sourdough that it's like, it's the final frontier. It is the hard style of baking. You could probably do a French croissant before you could do a sourdough loaf. Maybe that's just the impression that I got, but it's like, you know, you gotta feed this starter constantly, and you have to know how to manage the humidity and the temperature of your bakery, and you gotta take the pH levels, and I'm sure that's all fine and dandy, but what I've noticed is you kind of just get in there, don't be intimidated by it, and just make some really bad bread. Because unfortunately, if you haven't made bread before, or if you've made like one loaf before, that's really all you have in store is making really bad bread, until you make some better bread, and then some good bread, and then some great bread that people are knocking down your door for. It's actually funny. Hopefully he never sees this video, but I had a customer come to the market who has reached out before, and he's like, when are you going to be teaching online or in-person classes, And I was like, it's in the works. I'm planning on doing it. And so he comes to the market all proud. He's got his little baggie with a slice of bread that he made this morning. And he had me try it, and it's good. And he's just talking my ear off, all this scientific babble about his pH reader, and he did this, and he's trying all these new methods. And I'm just like, I really don't have much to offer you in a one-on-one because I don't have a pH reader. I don't change the thermostat. I don't change my recipe when it's October in Florida as opposed to when it's July in Florida. I've literally kept the same recipe from, I don't want to say day one, but I've kept the same recipe, blend, hydration level, etc. from like when I really nailed it to now. And I haven't changed it. I make it the same way in January as I make it in October, as I make it anytime. So long answer short, ignore all of the sourdough is hard. It's sticky sometimes, but it's not hard, and anyone can do it. Ooh, another question. Dustin, your journey into the world of sourdough is quite unique. Well, thank you. Self-taught, full of trial and errors. Can you share some of the pivotal moments or challenges that shaped your path as a bread maker? Not to piggyback too much off of that last question answer, but I would say some of the moments that turned the light bulb on was like when I stopped watching videos and just started playing with it. In the beginning, it was all in my head, but then I started a little notebook and I would write down all of my flours that I was using, the hydration levels, time of day, not time of day, but like my ambient temperature in here. And again, I know I just said that you don't need to worry about your ambient temperature, but that's when things started changing and I was able to find my recipe, the Atticus bread, like original sourdough recipe. Was when I started tracking what I was doing. And then when I would find that loaf that came out, I was able to see like, okay, this is how much of these types of flours you used. This is how much water you used. Stick with that. Don't stray from that. Keep playing with it. Or keep making it and seeing if people like it. You know you're onto something. Another water break. Ooh. The questions are coming in. Atticus Bread Company has become a beloved part of the Bradenton community. Yes, it has. What inspired you to start your own bakery, and how has it evolved since its inception in May of 2020? You're right. It was more like May. June was when I had my first market. May was when I made the logo. It's become so I don't know. I mean, what inspired me was that I've always kind of been health conscious, I guess you could say. I do yoga. I drink kombucha, which is kind of what started this whole thing, watching the kombucha video. And I don't like to necessarily just do something for fun. Of course, why would I just make bread for fun when I could challenge myself and try and make a business out of it? So, and also I am sick of like big bread and grocery store bread, which is like a whole nother rant that I'm sure you could go down, talking about grocery store stuff. But yeah, I saw a need to bring real bread back. And even more now than ever, it's like every time someone new comes up to my tent at the market, it's like, I've been looking for good sourdough. I can't find it anywhere. Like, and it's true, you can't. I've looked at, Publix is my grocery store here in Florida, but you look on the back of that thing and there are 20 plus ingredients, and they're putting all these different types of acids in it to give it the tangy flavor to trick you into thinking it's sourdough. And so at the time, back in May, June-ish of 2020, I didn't know that, but knowing it, like now seeing how much people need this bread and want this bread, I guess that's kind of why I started it. Also, I get endless amounts of people who come up and they have a gluten intolerance, or not celiac. Celiac is a curse. I don't know. If you have it, you're probably not in this group. But if you're intolerant to gluten, I always challenge someone, try a piece of my bread. Do it right here, right now. I'll even call the EMS if anything happens. And most of the time, they're completely fine. So again, long answer short, I started it because my community needed real sourdough bread, the kind that they ate back in the Bible. Oh, we have got another question up on the screen from a Facebook user. Nice name. When you finally succeeded in making a really good loaf of sourdough, what did you change in the process to get to that success? I wish I could tell you. No, what it was, and I'm sure this is not a new name to viewers, but I switched to using Central Milling Company. Is their name, right? I'm looking at the bag of flour down there. Central Milling Company's artisan blend. That's not what my final blend is now. Again, if you stick it to the end, I'll give you that. But using that and just, let's see, what else did I do? This is like 3 years ago. I'm trying to think of what I did. I switched to that flour. I basically simplified the flours. I used that, and I think their whole white wheat that they offer. So both of those at like a 50-50 ratio, equal parts, and just time. I gave it more time to ferment, to bulk ferment. I gave it more time in the refrigerator. Just the way my schedule works and how I like the bread and how my customers like the bread, I do a 17 to 20 hour cold ferment. So, when I was first doing it, I was just rushing everything. I think the first night when my sister-in-law came over here and we made our first loaf, did it in a day, like noon to 6 o'clock, which is nowhere near enough time to make sourdough bread unless it's like 112 degrees in here and it's just fermenting like crazy. So yeah, one would be that I switched to the Central Milling artisan blend and their whole white wheat. And then I just gave it more time to do what sourdough does, and that's ferment. So I hope that helped. Sourdough bread has experienced a resurgence in popularity. Yeah, you're telling me. What do you believe sets sourdough apart from other bread varieties, both in terms of flavor and technique? Water first. Okay, I agree. Yes, that's my answer. Sourdough bread, it has experienced a resurgence, big time. For someone who's trying to do this as a business, I kind of found myself a little perturbed at times, especially back in the early days of 2020 when everyone was buying flour and I couldn't find it in grocery stores. And so I had to pivot there, which cool. But it definitely has made a resurgence. The reasons being, off the top of my head, I think one is because of its approachability as a home baker. The fact that you don't really need much of anything except for a bowl and your hands. So a lot of people, were making it at home. But then also the nutrition level. The fact that you can eat it and feel fine. You can eat half a loaf. I might have been there before, and feel fine. And you get such good nutritions. And again, I mean, I didn't write them down. I'm not Mr. Science. I know there's vitamins in there. I don't have them in front of me. But I think another big thing is the intolerance to gluten that we have developed as a society. Thankfully, I have not. Maybe it's my German roots that have like stuck in me, and I'm not allergic to bread or pasta in any form. But I think that those two things, the approachability to be able to make it at home, and the fact that it is easily digest and actually good for you, that kind of play the role in its resurgence, and hopefully it keeps going. Building a community around bread making is something that's close to our hearts. How has connecting with fellow bakers and enthusiasts influenced your journey? And what role do you think community plays? So, full disclaimer and disclosure, this is my first time interacting with another like baking community. I've just had my head down so much that I haven't really gotten a chance to hang out with other bakers. But I have connected like through social media, and it's kind of crazy. I was just running my Instagram account, normal pictures, whatnot, and then Reels came along, and I started kind of adding some of those. It's crazy the amount of like bakers that were in my shoes 2 years ago have like reached out and just wanted to pick my brain. And I honestly didn't know that I had anything to even offer anyone. I was just here slinging dough, making bread. But yeah, I mean, there is clearly a community of bakers, whether it's just for fun and for family, or you're actually trying to get something off the ground and start a bakery. It is definitely, it's definitely coming up. And I think a community like this, the Baking Great Bread at Home, is wonderful to have access to, because we can share ideas, our successes, our not so much successes. And I've only been in the group for a few days now, and I'm anxiously looking forward to, involving myself in the group. I've been very busy working on something that I will talk about at the end of this, which is why I haven't had a chance to interact in the group. But yeah, community is everything when it comes to baking. We've all kind of got to have each other's backs to, again, get real bread out there. It existed, and not to go into too much history lessons, but it existed, and then something happened, and all of a sudden we've got Wonder Bread, and I think we're kind of coming back that way. If I share, I mean, I do have the floor, but I would love to see, and I know it's possible, but I would love to see a way to take what I'm doing and blow it up like full scale. Get it in Whole Foods, get it in Sprouts, get it in Trader Joe's, the grocery store, whatever. I know that there is a way to do it without putting a bunch of preservatives in there. So maybe 5 years from now, you'll be in Alaska and you'll be enjoying a loaf of my bread. I don't know. But yeah, community is everything. Another question. I feel like I'm at a market here. Could you share some of your favorite tips or tricks for beginners looking to venture into the world of sourdough? What's the first piece of advice you'd give someone starting their sourdough journey? What would I give as a tip? I think it would be to just start doing something. Make a loaf and see what happens. Biggest thing would be to, let's see here, beginner. It's been such a long time. Don't overthink it, and don't use your thumbs. Because when you use your thumbs, everything gets really sticky, and you freak out because the dough's sticking to your hands. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, it's really just kind of find something, whether it's on Google or YouTube or me, reach out to me, I'll give you my recipe, and work that out before you give up. The problem, it's great that we've got all this information out there floating in the internet, in the world, but the problem I found is that there's too much information. So you're watching how to make the dough from somebody in France, but then you're watching a video from someone in San Francisco on how to shape it, and there's just all these different tips and tricks and methods and techniques coming out of everywhere, and you're just like, it's just a pile of poop, and it's a dense yuck brick. So yeah, find one source and play with it until you have what you consider a decent loaf. And then you can kind of move on from there. Everything in the baking world is reps, getting reps in. Making bread and getting reps in. And I always say your worst loaf is still better than store-bought bread. So yeah, I mean, as a beginner, just get into it. That's what I would say. That's what I did. I had no clue what I was doing. Yes, I have. You've mentioned trial and error in your baking journey. Could you share a memorable aha moment when you discovered a baking technique or tip that made a significant difference in your sourdough? This is not so much about the actual dough, but one tip that made the journey easier was, and I hope that no one freaks out about this, but was not treating my starter like a living, breathing pet, like leaving it on my counter and feeding it every day, every 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever. I hate to break it to everyone and to any of my sourdough aficionado customers out there, but my sourdough starter lives in the refrigerator, and when I need it to bake, I take it out. I don't let it come to temperature. I don't give it a day. I don't feed it and this and that. I take it out. The mother this is. Take her out. Well, him, it's Atticus. I take what I need. I make my levain for the batch, and I throw it back in the refrigerator. And then I let what I need for the batch, I let that stay out. So, I know a lot of people like to have a big jar and they just kind of feed it and let it do its thing on the counter or whatever. And when they go to make bread, they'll kind of scoop from that. But yeah, I've kind of like streamlined the waste. I was sick of making discard pancakes and discard cookies and discard this, that, and other thing. So I was just like, throw it in the refrigerator. And I don't know, maybe it's just strong because he's old or what the deal is, but it makes beautiful, tangy, oven spring filled, delicious loaves. So maybe that's one tip or aha moment, was stop babying the starter, because it takes a lot to kill it. That is if it's strong to start with. It has to be strong to start with. I mean, don't have some weak starter that you throw in the refrigerator for 2 months and expect it to live. I do feed my mother like once a week. Unless it's getting low, then I feed it again. It all really depends on the bake schedule. But yeah, that's kind of like just the reoccurring theme here. I'll get to that question in a second. That's kind of the reoccurring theme here. It's just like, stop overthinking sourdough. I think it's like, it's so simple. It's flour, water, and salt. Like, you can put it on the pedestal and go crazy with it, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to tweak too much of my stuff because I've got lines of people wanting it. So, anyways, you're launching an online school to teach the art and science of making sourdough bread. What motivated you to share your expertise in this format? Basically, the last question, or the last answer. Yes, I am launching a school, which is not ready yet, but it's in the works, and everything's in the works. Life is just in the works. 1 minute. Yeah, what motivated me was I felt it was time. I've had enough success as a cottage baker that I felt like it was time to share it all. And I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide. I will give you all my secrets. I'm not worried about making competitors, because this isn't about competition. It's about getting good bread out to people who need it. So that's kind of what sparked it. I was ready to do something else, to branch off. We're keeping the bread thing. I'm still going to do markets. I'm still going to supply bread to people. But of course, the online thing, I felt it was time, because from my experience, there was just too much of the noise. Too many places to get information. Too many Frankenstein, take a video from here, and put it all together and try and come up with something. With my courses and with what I'm trying to teach, it's like, do these things and get this. Guaranteed. I've got 3 years of like doing this, and this comes out of the oven every time. I think 1 or 2 times in the last 3 years, I've pulled a loaf out and there's been a giant like air hole in it, and that has baffled me. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, that's why I'm ready to share the knowledge. I'm ready to get it out of here and put it in people's hands. Hope that answered that question. When you think about your journey from a beginner to a self-taught bread maker, what's one baking accomplishment that you're particularly proud of? I'm going to name like 2 or 3. I'm going to name 3, even though it says name 1. One is finding and getting my Rackmaster 2020 or Rackmaster ARM 2020 deck oven. But was getting that's an accomplishment, because when I look back to day 1 or market 1, bringing 8 loaves with my head down, like who's gonna buy bread, to now having like a semi-professional bread oven here, pumping out like dozens of loaves every 40 minutes. You got to celebrate the little wins, and that's kind of a big win, especially for like a cottage baker. I think it's great. Number 2, even though it said just 1, would be that I had a magazine company article thing, whatever they're called nowadays, reach out to me. It's like a local magazine. Brenton is by Sarasota, which is by Siesta Key, which has a show on MTV. So maybe you've heard of Sarasota. But so they have a magazine, and they featured me in it, and they came and took pictures of me making bread and interviewed me and all that stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool that that I'm in a magazine. I don't know who reads magazines. I did actually get like 2 or 3 people to actually buy bread for me because of the magazine. So that's cool. And the third accomplishment would be that I got invited to do this, which, like I said, kind of came out of left field. I just was doing life, and I get this message from a Henry character, and he's like, "Hello, I'm Henry, and blah, blah, and this is this, and this is what we do." And so, yeah, here we are, sharing the message, the good message of bread making, sourdough bread making, with everybody. So yeah, I want to get back to that thing that I said in the beginning. I'm going to give you something free. So anyone can make bread. Obviously, y'all have some kind of, ability to make bread, and that's great. Maybe you want to take it to the next level. Maybe you want to stay where you're at. Who knows? But anyways, so I have put together a ebook, which kind of outlines my whole process. I literally have my original sourdough recipe in there, the ratios of flour, what exact flours, all that stuff in there. This is the loaf that made me. This is the loaf that has people, knocking down my door to get it. So yeah, I'm going to put something up on the screen here. If you want the free ebook and you want to know what my process is. You basically go to ebook.atticusbreadco.com and you'll get my ebook, and it's interactive. So there's a couple videos in there. There's some pictures, just everything. Like I said, I'm trying to be an open book, an open ebook. Let me teach you. Let me give you, maybe there's some little thing you pick up from it that you're like, oh my God, that's been the missing part. But yeah, I want to give my info out there. Again, ebook.atticusbreadco.com. You can find me on social media, which is at Atticus Bread Co. everywhere, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm not hard to find. Unless there's any other questions, thank you for this opportunity. I didn't know that I could talk for 45, 6, whatever minutes about what I do. I hope everyone enjoyed that. And I hope to see you on another Thursday Night Lights one of these days.